Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our channel today. Our focus of conversation is on mental health, and the conversation on mental health, I'm going to do a follow-up from my initial video and talk about how you keep yourself from feeling hateful. And I think this is really important because I think that it is soft science. There's an art and a science to it, and if you yourself have been subjected to experiences or to treatment, or you've seen things that make you feel like just so horrified, and sometimes when we feel angry and when we feel helpless and angry, it can be what makes us feel hateful. And also sometimes when we are struggling to forgive someone for the things that they've done, either because it was just such a deep wound or because they aren't remorseful, like they don't feel bad about it, then what we can do is internalize that energy and feel hatefulness. And feeling hateful, what we're doing is we're disconnecting ourselves from our own humanity. And I think that there's something about hatefulness that I think we don't recognize as how poisonous it is, how poisonous it can be for us, by way of how it changes the quality of our decisions, and it changes the nature of our decisions. It allows us to feel justified in doing the unjustifiable. And a lot of the things that we see around the world that we find to be unjustifiable, they're a byproduct of people who themselves are consumed by hatefulness. And so when we look at these people and we feel hateful towards these people, then we recognize that that's a slippery slope to becoming the exact person that you hate, because the object of our attention, it has the most influence on us. And if we're constantly feeling consumed with hatefulness, with bitterness, with resentment, then that becomes rooted in us, and it's hard to break free from that. So here's how I myself keep myself accountable to loving the person even if I hate the action. And I do believe that we have every right to hate actions that are not in alignment with our values, not in alignment with our morals, not in alignment with how we think we should behave towards nature, towards humanity, or towards each other. But I think that even if we feel that way, we feel very strongly about what is and isn't appropriate by way of actions, we need to hold ourselves accountable to not respond from a place of hate, because then we become the object of our hatred. We want to keep from that, because I think that when we think about like not repeating our history, it's not repeating the energy that really propelled a lot of the atrocities in history. And when we think about what's happening in Gaza, it is an acts of hatred that are translating as crimes against humanity. When we think about what's happening in Sudan, these are acts of hatred over and above greed, over and above self-interest, over and above a sense of superiority that people might feel. Like all of this is fed and nourished through hate. And so as we are looking at this as a global community and positioning ourselves against it, like I myself felt very helpless. I have to say, I felt very helpless for a while. And while I have vocalized that like I'm completely for Palestine, I want there to be support, to be justice, to be repercussions and consequences for the people who are suffering the circumstances right now in Palestine, and the same for Sudan. Like there needs to be accountability here, and we need to support people who are vulnerable to exploitation and to this kind of abuse. And the abuse is just elevating. It's like they're getting more creative with how they're trying to be abusive. But I don't think that how we ensure that we're not perpetuating this cycle of hatred, that we do that by operating ourselves from a place of hatred. Even if we feel justifiably angry, very careful to not allow ourselves to feel justifiably hateful. And so the reason why I feel that way is because I think hate changes the nature of our humanity. It allows us to feel like we can do the things that we ourselves find abhorrent, and then one day we wake up and we are the kinds of people who can do these things without batting an eyelash. And so I think about the world politics, I think about what's happening in the world around like the hateful actions and reactions that are happening around the world. And a lot of us feel kind of helpless, because it's like, how do you combat that kind of darkness? Like how do you fight that kind of evil? Like if your world leaders feel paralyzed and crippled to respond with all the power at their disposal, like who am I, what am I going to do from my little corner of this universe? And so for me, what I've decided I want to do is talk about how we posture ourselves when we're confronted with hatred. And one of the things that I recognize is just so important is distinguishing the person from the action. The one way that you can keep yourself aligned to your morals, to your values, to your convictions, while addressing the actions and the behavior in alignment with what needs to be done for the severity of those actions and those behaviors, is by recognizing that you are going to be responding and reacting to the behavior that you find abhorrent. But people themselves, we are all people. We are all connected. The worst of us is connected to the best of us, right? There's not something that breaks us, right, by way of our human experience. And some of us in our human experience, we ourselves are consumed with darkness because we're consumed with hatefulness. And because of that, we feel justified in doing these horrible things. But recognize that if we think ourselves that we're beyond redemption, then what's your drop of hatefulness going to do for someone who themselves is consumed with hatefulness themselves? And whether that's self-hatred or just hatred towards the world around them, like you are what you project in the world around you. So I think that it's important that if we don't want to become the object of our disdain, that we have to make sure that we don't operate from that same place. And so the best way that we do that is we distinguish actions from people, and we never allow ourselves to feel justified for hating people. Now, the second thing that I think is really important to do when it comes to making sure that we hold space for people and we recognize that no one is beyond redemption and no one is beyond being loved is forgiveness. Forgiveness is so important, and forgiveness doesn't mean we don't hold people accountable. Forgiveness doesn't mean that we turn a blind eye or that we are lenient when it comes to addressing behaviors that we find important. Forgiveness means we let the energy go. The energy that we feel, like the anger, the frustration, the rage, the disdain, the disgust that we feel, we commit to letting that go and to not letting that fester in our bodies, because that is energy that will bring us down. And while all energy, all emotions are energy and emotion, they need to be felt in response to the things happening around us, because they give us a signal as to our own morality and our own convictions and how we're going to align to those events. We don't want to hold on to that, because holding on to it changes the fiber of our own being, and we don't want to change the fiber of our being when we can be game changers of our own. Like, we can lead, but we have to lead with light. We need to lead with love, and I think the world more now than ever, it needs love. And how we know that is because the things that we're seeing generates a sense of hatefulness in us. Like, we feel hateful towards people who are so hateful towards others. But even for me, like, I hold myself accountable. I'm like, well, no, like, I can't let myself feel hateful towards this person. I can't let myself feel bitter and feel like, you know, that person is beyond redemption. Like, they're just this kind of like disgusting low life individual. Like, when I start to think those thoughts, and all of us think those thoughts at some point in time, I tell myself, well, wait, like, this person wasn't born this way. Like, this person became this way. And because this person became this way, like, they have an opportunity hopefully to change, but there's not going to be really room for that if I'm also adding hatefulness to that pool. So that's how I look at it. And I think forgiveness is the best way for us to make sure that we're not holding on to the kind of energy that feeds the energy that creates these kinds of wars against humanity. And last but not least, I think that anchoring together with community, finding like-minded people who are just as disgusted, angry, horrified, and feel justified in being angry about the things that are happening, but then holding themselves accountable to respond in alignment with their higher selves, to respond recognizing that the person is very different from the action, and we can like hate the action but not hate the person. I think if we find communities of people who are angry, who want to make a difference, who want to make the change, who are trying to leverage their voice to create an impact, but they're holding themselves accountable to a higher standard and not allowing themselves to fall into the trap of feeling hateful, to feeling negative and wanting to respond from a hateful and negative place, then those are the kind of people you want to cleave to. And right now, more than ever, like, the rhetoric that is happening is just so much more hateful than I feel comfortable with. Like, even just watching it, it makes me cringe. And so because of that, I'm like, well, I want to be a voice in the ether that speaks to, like, yes, I'm against what's happening in Palestine, I'm against what's happening in Sudan, but I do not think that the move forward, like how we mitigate these crimes against humanity, is by allowing ourselves to feel hatred and project more hatred towards the people who are doing the hateful acts. I think we hold them accountable, we hate the acts, but we need to recognize that we're all people at the end of the day. We all make mistakes at the end of the day. Some of us, the mistakes are beyond our realm of comprehension, like things that power enables us to do, it's even beyond what I can understand, because these are not things that I would do if ever I was in a position of power. But rather than feel helpless and crippled and feel like there's nothing we can do, we can respond by holding people accountable to a higher standard, by responding with love to the person but hate for the action. So that was what I wanted to come on here and talk about. I think it's really an important discussion. I think that it's important for us to think about how we position ourselves, how we posture ourselves, and how we even speak about these things to our children, because we never want to be the people who feed a need to hate. I never want to be that person, no matter what someone does in my personal life or in the global stage. I am someone who wants to always be there to share love and light and not hate. And I think that that's the best way that we can save humanity from a lot of the chaos that's going on. So if you want to have more of these conversations, you want to have talks around self-mastery, around self-discovery, self-exploration, that we do host live events at least twice a month, every month on our website. And so these events are paid events, but if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I do suggest that you check it out. Now, we do also provide parent-child workshops, because we think that focusing on leadership development needs to happen while children are young and impressionable, by focusing on 4 key concepts. So focusing on cultivating a sense of self-concept, a sense of autonomy, self-efficacy, and compassion, because these are the pillars of strong, purposeful, meaningful leadership that doesn't succumb to some of the lower appeals of some of the politicians that we have in the world around us, the people who don't succumb to greed, to self-interest, to selfishness, and to a sense of superiority. And so if we want to create leaders who we will be proud of when they represent us, and I think that we need to start to focus on leadership while we're young, and these are the modules that will do just with that. So thank you again for tuning in. Check out our website, check out the programs that we have. Leave a comment down below by way of how you yourself are making sure that you're holding yourself accountable to not responding from a place of hate. And I look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.